ex-girlfriend, who betrayed me with my brother before our wedding, reaches out 12 years later. So, I guess I should start by saying I'm a 47-year-old guy who's finally getting married to this amazing woman I've been dating for the last 4.5 years. Her name's Jess, she's 34, and honestly, she's the best thing that ever happened to me. We're supposed to get married in less than a week, and while I should be over the moon, I've got some serious history that's been weighing on my mind. See, this isn't my first time going through the whole wedding prep thing. Nope, I almost got married once before, like 11 years ago, to my ex, Lily. We were together for nearly 10 years, which is kind of wild now that I think about it. We met back in high school, did the whole young love thing, and even lived together for 5 years. Everyone thought we were perfect for each other, and yeah, I thought so too. I was totally ready to marry her, you know? Like, we were practically living like we were married already, but, things didn't go as planned. And by didn't go as planned, I mean the whole thing blew up in my face in the worst way possible. It still feels weird talking about it, but I guess I need to get it out there, especially with everything that's happening now. So, here's how it went down. My ex Lily and I had everything set for the wedding. I'm talking about the venue, the dress, the cake, all that stuff. My family was super excited because they loved her, and we had been together for so long that she was basically already part of the family. My mom was over the moon about finally having a daughter-in-law, and my dad was just glad I wasn't screwing things up like I usually did. The night before the wedding, Lily suggested I stay at a hotel instead of at home. She was really into all those superstitions, like the one where you're not supposed to see the bride before the wedding because it's bad luck. I didn't really believe in that stuff, but I figured, what the hell, it's her day, so I'll just do what she wants. Plus, it was supposed to add to the whole excitement, right? Anyway, I'm at the hotel, just chilling, trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm getting married the next day. But then, I remember I left my shoes at home. Yeah, I know, who forgets their wedding shoes? Well, apparently I do. So I head back home to grab them. It was already late, like around 10 p.m. or something, but I figured I'd be in and out in a minute. When I get to the house, everything's dark. And that's weird because Lily never turns off the lights, even if she's just leaving the room for a minute. She's always been super scared of the dark. I thought maybe she went to bed early, trying to get her beauty sleep or whatever, so I didn't think too much of it. I went straight to the bedroom because that's where I left my shoes. And honestly, I was just thinking about grabbing them and getting back to the hotel as fast as possible. But when I opened the door, man, I swear my heart stopped. There they were, Lily and my little brother Mark, in my bed. Not just sleeping or something, but actually doing it. I was completely frozen. It's like my brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing, you know? I just stood there like an idiot while they were too caught up in their thing to even notice me at first. It was like time slowed down or something. I remember every single detail, like how Lily's hair was all messy, and she had this stupid grin on her face, and how Mark had that look of panic when he finally realized I was standing there. I don't even know how long I stood there before my body finally kicked in and I turned around and bolted out of the house. I don't even remember driving back to the hotel. It's all just a blur of headlights and streetlights, and my hands shaking so bad I could barely keep the car on the road. When I got back to my room, I just collapsed. I didn't know what to do. My world had just come crashing down in the span of like 2 minutes. I was supposed to get married the next day, and now what? Everything was ruined. I must have sat there for an hour, maybe more, just staring at the wall, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. And then, out of nowhere, the tears started. I'm not talking about a few tears. I mean full-on sobbing like a kid who just lost his favorite toy. I cried until I had nothing left, and then I just laid there, numb. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to explain what had happened because saying it out loud would make it real. And I wasn't ready for that. I didn't even tell Lily which hotel I was staying at, so she couldn't find me. But she sure tried. My phone started blowing up with texts from her. All these apologies and explanations, but I couldn't bring myself to read them. I didn't want to hear whatever bullshit excuse she had for sleeping with my brother the night before our wedding. Eventually I did read them, though. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I needed to know. Or maybe I just wanted to torture myself a little more. She kept saying it was a one-time thing, that she was freaking out about the wedding, that Mark had been there for her when she didn't know who else to turn to. It was all garbage. She had 10 years to talk to me about anything that was bothering her, but instead she chose to sleep with my brother. That's not a freaking out moment. That's a betrayal, plain and simple. I blocked her after that. I didn't need to hear any more of her crap. I blocked Mark too. I didn't want to hear from either of them ever again. And then I had to deal with the wedding. I had to cancel everything, call everyone, and explain why there wasn't going to be a wedding anymore. That was probably the hardest part because I knew everyone would be asking questions and I wasn't ready to answer them. But I did it anyway because there was no way in hell I was going through with that wedding. I didn't care how much money I lost on deposits or whatever. I just wanted it all to be over. Telling my parents was a whole other nightmare. They were confused as hell, didn't know whether to comfort me or be mad at Mark. They wanted to fix things, like parents always do, but this wasn't something that could be fixed. I told them what happened and then just let them figure out what they wanted to do. I wasn't going to tell them to pick sides, but I sure as hell wasn't going to be around if they decided to keep Mark in their lives. After all that, I ordered some room service, ate maybe 2 bites, and then just cried myself to sleep. The next day, I started packing up Lily's stuff. I couldn't stand the thought of her being in my house, using my things, sleeping in my bed. I wanted her gone, and I didn't care where she went. When she came to get her things, I was already gone. I couldn't face her. I didn't want to see her ever again. I left her keys on the counter and made sure I was nowhere near the house when she came by. That was the last time I saw her for a long time. The next time was at some mutual friends party a couple of years later. She tried to talk to me, but I walked out as soon as I saw her coming my way. I didn't owe her anything. Not a conversation, not forgiveness, nothing. Mark? I haven't spoken to him since that night. Last I heard, he's been living in Europe, working some job or another, but I couldn't care less. As far as I'm concerned, he's not my brother anymore. Anyway, that's all in the past now. I've moved on, I'm in a better place, and I'm with someone I trust completely. But just when I thought it was all behind me, here we are, a week before my wedding, and guess who decides to crawl out of the woodwork? Yep, Lily. I don't know how she found out about the wedding, but she did, and she reached out to me. And that's where things start getting really messed up again. So, after everything that went down with Lily and my brother, I did what I had to do to pick up the pieces and move on with my life. It wasn't easy, and it sure as hell didn't happen overnight, but eventually I got my act together. Met Jess, started building a new life, and things have been really good. We've got this wedding coming up in just a few days, and honestly, I thought I'd left all that old baggage behind me. But like I said, life has a way of throwing you for a loop. It started a few days ago. I was just scrolling through Facebook, minding my own business, checking out pictures from a buddy's camping trip, when I noticed I had a new friend request. Now, I don't get many friend requests these days. Most of the people I care about are already on my list, and I'm not exactly out there making a bunch of new friends, you know? So I figured it was probably just a spam account or something. But then I saw the name, Lily. At first, I just stared at it, trying to process what I was seeing. It had been years since I blocked her, and I hadn't heard a peep from her since then. I had no idea why she was reaching out now, of all times, but seeing her name pop up on my screen made my stomach drop. I thought about just ignoring it, blocking her again without even looking at her profile. But then curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on her profile and there it was. Her new account, no friends, just a couple of pictures and a bunch of posts about feeling lost and regretful. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was going on. She was fishing for sympathy, probably trying to work her way back into my life after all these years. It pissed me off, honestly. Like, where the hell does she get off thinking she can just waltz back in after what she did? But of course, it wasn't just the friend request. She'd sent me a message too. And like an idiot, I clicked on it. The first few lines were all apologies, saying how sorry she was for everything that happened, that she'd been thinking about me a lot lately, and that she just wanted to talk. She even had the nerve to say she'd heard about my upcoming wedding and that she was happy for me but also heartbroken. Heartbroken? Really? This woman was heartbroken? I couldn't believe the audacity. But as much as I wanted to just delete the message and pretend I never saw it, part of me was curious. I wanted to know what her angle was, why she was doing this now. So I kept reading. She went on about how she'd never really gotten over me, that she made the biggest mistake of her life that night, and that she's been living with that guilt ever since. She claimed that her life hadn't been the same without me, that she'd lost herself, and now with me getting married, she couldn't bear the thought of losing me forever. It was all this dramatic, emotional crap that honestly just made me want to throw my phone across the room. But then she dropped the real bomb. She wanted to meet up. She didn't say where or when, just that she needed to see me, to explain everything face to face. Said it was the only way she could truly apologize. And as much as I hated to admit it, a tiny part of me was tempted. Not because I wanted her back, hell no, but because I wanted to finally confront her, to tell her exactly what I thought of her and what she did to me. The situation felt like a total déjà vu. The way she pleaded for me to take her back despite her actions and claimed that I was the only man she'd ever loved had a profound impact on me. And I even told my fiancé about it immediately. Part of me was so perturbed by this that I wanted to give her a piece of my mind for bothering me before my wedding. But another, more unforgiving part of me really wanted revenge. I knew that I'd done the right thing all those years back and had dealt with the situation like an adult. However, this time around, I harbored a strong desire to inflict emotional pain on her to the extent that she wouldn't even consider reaching out to me again. When I confided in my fiancée about these feelings, she fully supported the idea, despite her own experiences of being cheated on in the past. Acknowledging that our relationship wasn't a 10-year one, it still left a painful impact. So she knew how I felt. So this time, instead of just letting it go, we came up with a plan to get revenge and make sure that my ex went through the same heartache that she put me through. This is why a couple of hours after I received her text, I decided to text her back, saying that I was finally ready to talk to her. She expressed her readiness to come to my place immediately, but I suggested she get a room in a nearby hotel. I promised to meet her there the next day to avoid raising suspicions with my fiancé. Throughout this conversation, my fiancé was right beside me, and surprisingly, she agreed to the plan. And so the next day I went to her hotel. At the time we agreed upon, she seemed overjoyed to see me and was actually crying happy tears. But she'd be crying real tears in a couple of minutes. She sat me down and started explaining how she'd been so sorry about what had happened for these past 12 years. I wanted to make it up to me, but didn't know how to get through to me until she heard from a friend that I was getting married again. She believed that sending one last text was crucial, fearing she would lose me forever if she didn't. I feigned interest, attentively listening and holding her hands while she spoke. All the while, I anxiously awaited my fiancé's arrival. After almost 20 minutes, a knock on the door signaled her presence, prompting me to rush and open it. My fiancé answered, followed by all of our groomsmen and bridesmaids wearing masks of my brother's face. They'd carried a cake in as well, and even that had my brother's face smiling up at us. My ex was horrified and couldn't even come up with words to say anything. We yelled surprise eyes while she looked on with a shocked expression on her face, because I'm sure nobody would have ever seen this coming. We've managed to convince the hotel staff that we were surprising her, and it was relatively easy since she'd already informed them to let in any guest who wanted to visit her, which she'd meant just for me. But I had other plans. After she was able to process what was happening, she started sobbing and mumbling some incoherent gibberish while crying. I wasn't inclined to let her off the hook so easily, messaging me just a week before my wedding. After cheating on me with my own brother the day before we were supposed to get married was audacious. Now she had to confront the consequences of her actions. I made it clear that this was what she deserved, and any chance of reconciliation, if ever, would only be considered after her betrayal. Then she was dead wrong. She had no business texting me after what she'd put me through, and I was glad that she was hurt by what I'd done because she'd brought it upon herself. I was really cold and curt while saying all of this, but she continued to sob and said that if I didn't want her back, then I should have just ignored and blocked her instead of going out of my way to humiliate her like this. But I didn't feel sorry for her in the slightest. Not then, not now. I told her never to speak to me again, and then left her crying by herself in the hotel room. Now I'm supposed to get married in 2 days, but some of my fiancé's friends want me to apologize to my ex since they think that the way I told her off that day was harsh. Despite her actions, some may argue that she didn't deserve this. However, my groomsmen who have known me since middle school don't share this sentiment. They are fully aware of the battles I faced with depression and fighting for my life in the years following my breakup with my ex due to the circumstances. They understand the depth of my love for her and what she meant to me, so they didn't judge or mind what I had done. My fiancé's friends had probably been expecting some high school drama that they could gossip about later, but this was too raw and real for them. My fiancée is on my side and doesn't think I should apologize, but her friends are refusing to be part of the wedding. If I don't do that now, I'm really torn up because on one hand, I don't want my fans to be upset on our wedding day. After all, she really values her friends. But I also don't think I owe my ex any apology at all. She could have just stayed out of my life and this never would have happened, but she just didn't want to see me happy. In fact, she still tried to play the victim here and keep sending texts from spam accounts about how I broke her heart and that this will definitely come back to me someday. I don't particularly care for this brand of emotional manipulation, not for my ex, and most certainly not for my fiancé's bridesmaids. Now I know that she's never going to tell me to apologize just for her sake, but I sort of feel obliged to at this point. And that's why I'm here. I'm running out of time, and I need to decide what I'm going to do right now. 84. Humiliating my cheating ex after she tried to get back with me just a week before my wedding. Update 1. So the response on this has been pretty diverse, to say the least. There's just 1 day to go until the wedding, and I decided to speak to my fiancée before I actually do anything. Like most people have suggested, I talked to her about how I've been feeling, and as soon as I told her, she said that I absolutely didn't have to apologize to my ex just because her bridesmaids fought so, and if that offended them, then they could skip her wedding. She shared that her bridesmaids were unaware of the details, and many of them believed that I had overreacted, even after she explained that my ex and I had been together for a decade, and she had cheated on me with my brother, an act perceived as incomprehensibly cruel and unforgivable. Despite the severity of the situation, they remained unconvinced, still thinking I was being unreasonable and owed her an apology. So she gave up trying to explain my side of things to them, and even told them that they didn't have to attend our wedding if they didn't feel like it. She hasn't spoken to her friends in one whole day, and it seems really unlikely that they'll be attending. One of them even paid her back for the cost of the bridesmaid dress that she'd bought them all, and she thinks that most of them are going to skip. She's putting up a strong front for my sake, but I know she's hurting since these women have been her friends since high school. My fiancé says she doesn't care, but I know she does, deep down. So I've decided to talk to her friends and try to convince them myself. As for my ex, she has become quite a nuisance. Just a few hours ago, she somehow managed to call me and spent a whole 15 minutes trying to argue. She was insistent on convincing me that I was still in love with her, but just too proud to admit it. Why did she think so? Well, according to her, I went to such great lengths only to humiliate her. So it's obviously meant that I still did have feelings for her deep down. Yeah, she's right. But those feelings are of hate and disgust. For whatever reason, she believes. I just wanted to see her one last time, which is why I'd held her hands while she was talking. But honestly, that was just a shocker. Even more, I literally laughed in her face while talking to her, hoping that she'd get the hint. But she kept on blabbering about how we were soulmates and that I needed to call off the wedding before I made a huge mistake. Truly, the sole reason I'm considering any of this is to prevent her from making any regrettable decisions. I've been attempting to contact her parents to facilitate her removal, but so far I haven't succeeded in reaching them. Consequently, I'm patiently waiting for their response. Once they step in, I'll finally be able to part ways with her for good. Don't get me wrong, I still hate her, but I also don't want her to hurt herself. I'm not that inhuman. Update 2. Hey guys, so we're officially married now. It's been a couple of days since the ceremony, and I still can't believe it. She's now my wife. I'm thrilled, but unfortunately there's still sad news. Her friends ended up not showing up to the wedding despite my attempts to get them to come. I personally called each one of them up to explain why I'd done what I'd done and why I didn't want to apologize. But they didn't care much for it. Even when I asked them to attend, just for my wife's sake, they weren't too hot on it. And that just seemed bizarre to me because I surely attend a friend's wedding, even if I didn't particularly like the person they were getting married to. I only learned the real reason yesterday when my wife finally confessed that she'd had a feeling her friends wouldn't attend. Whether or not I apologized simply because of the fact that she'd refused to do what they'd asked of her and had disagreed with them. They didn't like that one bit and believed that they were all one unit, so they always needed to have a united front. These friends from high school had been part of her life for a long time, and despite managing to keep the friendship intact over the years due to a lack of significant disagreements, this was the first time their bond faced a serious test. In this instance, she chose me over her friends, a decision that didn't sit well with them. She confessed to feeling a bit upset about the situation, but was too embarrassed to admit it, considering the whole situation to be juvenile. I didn't mind though, since, at least now, I was sure that this wasn't really my fault, and her friends were just self-centered. My wife even said that part of her was glad that they'd refused to attend because she could finally stop trying to fit in all the damn time, and could live life on her own terms without constantly having to seek her friends' approval. So that was good for us, I suppose. Also, my ex's parents finally responded to me on the evening before my wedding. I explained to them hurriedly what their daughter had tried to do and how they needed to get to the hotel she'd been staying in and take her back with them for her own safety because she was being really psychotic and delusional. I didn't feel it was appropriate for her to be left alone. It turns out they were on a hiking trip without network access. However, upon their return, they assured me that they would come to take her back as soon as possible and even expressed gratitude for informing them. I haven't received any updates since then, but I presume they successfully brought her back home. Update 3. Hi guys. It's been a week since my wedding, and unfortunately, it's been nothing but drama so far. As I mentioned, my girlfriend or her parents hadn't been in touch with me since the last time I spoke to her parents. I'd assumed that they'd take her home, but apparently not. 2 nights ago, there was a knock at our door, and since it was really late, my wife and I had no idea who it could be, because we weren't expecting anyone. I made the mistake of opening the door before looking through the cameras, and when I opened up, my ex pushed past me and walked in with her bags. My wife was sitting on the couch and literally sprang to her feet as soon as my ex walked in. I was about to ask her what she was doing in my house, but before I could say anything, she told me that she was here to stay. She told me that her parents had come to bring her home a few days back, but she had refused to go since she knew that I would take her back soon. My wife and I were stunned and had no idea how to react because of how crazy all this seemed. She told me that her parents had tried to force it to go back with them, but she'd had a huge fight with them and ended up staying at the hotel. Now she was running out of money and made the decision to move to my place. Her reasoning was that spending enough time with her again might trigger memories of the past and leave me to fall back in love with her. I was utterly perplexed and had no idea how to react due to the sheer strangeness of the situation. My wife tried to speak to her, but she ignored her presence altogether and continued speaking to me, demanding that I let her live with us. I told Rose gently as I could that I was a married man now, and she couldn't just show up here to live with me. But she said that she didn't accept the wedding, so in her eyes I was still unmarried. I couldn't believe that this was happening, but neither did I have the heart to kick her out, because honestly, she seemed seriously unstable, and it appeared to me that she needed help. So I sat her down and told her to wait in the living room while I went to the bedroom with my wife to discuss what we should do next. Thankfully, my wife was also quite sympathetic and knew there was something seriously off about how my ex was behaving. She needed serious professional help and we realized it. I tried to get through to her parents, but they didn't accept my calls and texts back, saying that they couldn't force to come back anymore and she was clearly too psychotic to live with them. Now she was on her own. It was evident that her parents were embarrassed by her, and it was disheartening to witness how they were prepared to abandon their own daughter once they realized she was facing difficulties with no other options left. In response, I called my own parents and they arrived within half an hour. My ex had fallen asleep on the couch in the meantime, which turned out to be fortunate. Upon my parents' arrival, we decided to take her to a therapist as soon as possible, as her recent actions left us uncertain about what she might be capable of at this point. My wife and I let her stay that night because honestly, neither of us could bring ourselves to hate her anymore because of how sad the whole situation was. Clearly, something had snapped in her mind, and she needed to be treated for it at the earliest. And the poor woman didn't even have her parents to count on anymore. My parents and I took her to the hospital the next day, and she was still rambling about how she was glad that I was finally coming around and had even started planning our wedding. We brought her to a mental health professional, but she adamantly refused, insisting that she felt perfectly fine despite numerous struggles and complications. The doctors were eventually able to calm her down with medication, including drugs whose names I don't recall following the treatment. She appeared considerably more composed. A couple of hours later, she finally expressed the desire to return home. I brought her home and we let her rest in the room while my family and I sat in the living room thinking about what to do next. My wife and I were really relieved when she said that she wanted to go home now and even helped her pack the stuff in the trunk of our car. We drove our home together. She remained silent throughout the ordeal, leaving us at a loss for words in such a challenging situation. Upon returning home, she apologized to both of us for the trouble she had caused and expressed her shame over everything that had transpired. My wife and I felt a sense of awkwardness throughout the interaction, but we reassured her that it was okay and advised her to prioritize self-care before heading back home. I didn't know if it would help or not, but I did contact my ex, his mother, and fill her in on everything that had happened. And I guess that finally made them realize the gravity of the situation. She told me that she's moved in with her daughter and said that she'll keep us updated. And despite whatever has happened so far, my wife and I truly wish that she gets better.